Do we have space?
Yeah, we'll figure it.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, welcome everybody. We've got what, 4, 8, 12, 16
so
people,
far.
I think, so far. So that's a pretty good turnout here. So, I don't really have a whole lot to go over. I mean, we've got a few events still on the for the year. Yeah, I think these types of presentations. Lynn's going to be doing this back Rafts today, and then is it next month?
November.
Or November. She's going to do the same presentation she did back in I think it was February.
Yeah.
And it's geology of the Colorado Plateau. It was awesome.
That was, I like that. It's a fun one.
Yeah, looking forward to the song, the Grand Canyon.
Oh. We were singing that.
Yeah.
River, right, Debbie?
Yep, we were.
It was fun.
And then and then we've got some other events. We still have this weekend, the National Public Wednesday. Not really put on by HCRR, but it's more of the BLM puts that on. And so if you're interested in volunteering, we've got pretty much everyone registered at this point, but let me know by the end of this meeting if you're interested. And then we've also got the Fall Colors trip in October. For those of you that have not done the Fall Colors trip or have in the past, traditionally we've done the pump house section all the way down to Dotsero, almost like Glenwood Springs area. 5 days on the river. This year we're changing it up a little bit, and we're going to go starting at Westwater. We're going to run through the Westwater Canyon, and then it continue on all the way basically to Moab. So it's still 5 days on the river, just a different stretch, and I'm hoping it'll be a little bit warmer because it's like getting out towards like the Grand Junction Moab area. So if you're interested in that, let me know. If you're not comfortable running through Westwater, no problem. You can hop on. There's multiple boat ramps along the way, so that's easy to do.
You just need to basically, once we had the group with the full list of people, what's typically been happened in the past is that you would reach out to the other people who are going on the trip. And for example, let's pretend I was only putting in at Dewey Bridge and going to Moab, then I might arrange a shuttle with you and we would together do that versus doing the shuttle that goes all the way from Westwater to Moab. But what the point is, there'll be lots of spots that you can take in or take out, and then we can just coordinate, amongst the people that are going, the logistics behind it.
Does the whole trip require a permit? Is it capped off at 25 people, or if I just do the second half, do I need to be a part of the permit?
Just the section through Westwater requires a permit. So after that, it's pretty open.
I would say, however, we really shouldn't go over 25 people for COVID purposes.
Yeah, we got the permit for 25. I didn't know at the time, and so we have it, but yeah, and I think there's I don't know.
It's probably not responsible to be having a lot more than 25 people, honestly. I mean.
So, but anyway, and then we've got the permit party and the planning meeting. Those will probably be through Zoom as well. So, so anyway, without further ado, pass it on to Lynn. Thanks, Lynn, for putting this together.
No problem. I don't have two screens on this computer, so I can't see anybody at this point, but I just will ask a couple of things. Can everyone mute themselves just to keep the background noise at a minimum? We're going to record this for posterity, but it's just nicer if we have it muted. And if you have questions, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask me the question, or if you prefer, there'll be plenty of time at the end to ask questions too. Either jot them down, or I think you can also text them or chat them in here, but I'm not sure. And I don't want to mess with my screen right now because I got it working perfectly. So I will start. So pack rafting, this is kind of the 101, the primer, general idea of what pack rafting is. Well, oops, it's not. There we go. So it's a primer on pack rafting. So what is pack rafting? This is the stuff I'll go through in this talk. the pack raft specific gear, the non-pack raft specific gear, things that are the same and different, tips for a first pack rafting outing, and some classic pack rafting trips. So I'll show you some videos from some. This is my pack raft that's on the Escalante River, and you can see that it's about a little bit longer than 6 feet tall or long. It's got a self-bailing floor. This is the Air brand's back raft, and it's basically a super lightweight ducky. I'll go into a little bit of the brands in a little bit, but before we do that, we'll just talk about it in general. Pack rafting is generally a combination of backpacking and duckying, effectively. The pack rafts are like high-end technical duckies that are super lightweight. The lightest weight that I know of is about 5 pounds, and the heaviest, typically they're 5 to 8 pounds, but I know of some that are like 10 to 12 pounds that are kind of specific to a specific activity, like hunting, or if you want to do a double pack raft. The geometry has changed over the years. There's a really interesting history. If you ever are bored and you want to look up pack raft history, that they there's also the new fad out there is bike packing, where you bicycle into somewhere and then you fold your bike up and put it on top of your back raft or your pack raft, and you float down and take out and just pedal away. For the most part, modern pack rafting started in the 80s. However, there have been pack rafts since the late 1800s, early 1900s, and they were made of various materials. This is Dick Griffith. He is credited with the earliest pack raft down the Grand Canyon, and that boat is even smaller than my boat. And I believe that boat was not a self-bailer. So that was a brave man going down the Grand Canyon at that thing. There are several things online. If you're interested, I can send you some links to histories. The American Pack Rafting Association, it's the APA. They have a lot of information on their site about pack rafting. They have pack raft specific safety courses and boating courses. They have a get together every year. This year's was canceled, of course, due to COVID. There was one in 2017 near Glenwood Springs. It was a blast. We had so much fun. We did the Roaring Fork River and the Colorado, and then some people did the Crystal River. And the nice thing about the Roaring Fork is you could go to the takeout, park your car, get on public transit with your boat and paddle and everything, go up as far as you wanted for the put in, and then just boat down to your takeout. It was great. It was really fun. So versatile, so lightweight. So it was great. Pack rafting gear. So really the only pack raft specific gear is the boat itself. They are marvelous boats. This is the Alpaca brand. It's called the Narwhal. This is their whitewater specific boat. Has thigh braces and thigh straps in it. It's a very whitewater engineered. The Alpaca is pretty much the go-to brand for pack rafting. The reason that I got the Air brand was because when I got mine in 2016 or 2015, Alpaca didn't have a self-bailing floor yet. And I really, after renting one of the Alpaca brands for my first trip down the Escalante and sitting in the water all the time, I really hated that. So when I heard about the Air brand getting the one with the self-bailing floor, that's what I went for. And now Alpaca has self-bailing floors. It adds about 1 pound to your boat. So if you're super weight conscious, you may not want to do that. Or if you're more focused on the backpacking than the boating, if you're using the boat just to get across big rivers, you may not need a self-bailing floor. But if you're going to be spending hours a day on your boat, I don't like sitting in the water personally. So the ones that have self-bailing floors don't typically have a skirt because your boat just flushes out. But some they still sell them without the self-bailing floors, and they have these they're rudimentary skirts. They're not going to keep the water out if you flip. They're not designed to keep the water out if you flip. But if you do come out of your boat when you flip and you swim, they come loose. They're like Velcroed on. It's pretty easy to come off. You can roll these boats if you're a good kayak or roller, if you have good technique. I can't do it, but I can't roll my canoe either, so I'm not too surprised. I can barely roll my kayak, so it's not my strong suit. So the Alpaca brand, they use, I believe it's a urethane. It's a single-walled boat. You can see it's shiny. My first boat trip down the Escalante, I rented an Alpaca brand boat, and those things are amazingly tough. If you've been down those rivers where all the beaver cut willows and they stick upstream, and you can't help it. You run into those all day long. And my boat never sprang a leak after 7 days of running into beaver cut willows the whole time. And then my current boat is the Air back raft. It's a green. It's got the Cuban fiber. It's called DCF fiber now, fabric on the outside, and it has the urethane bladder, just like all the other airboats do on the inside. So I like that. It's a little bit heavier than the alpaca brand, but not that much heavier. I think mine's like 7.5 pounds, and the equivalent alpaca brand would be like 6.5 or 7 pounds. So it depends on what you want. Nowadays, you can see the zipper down at the bottom of the picture. You can actually, the alpaca brand has a new thing in the last 2 or 3 years where you can actually store your gear inside the tubes. It's a waterproof zipper. You can unzip it, put all your gear in, and zip it back up. I mean, there's some downsides to that. You have to reinflate it every morning, but you don't have your backpack across the bow of your boat like you saw in that first picture. I'll show you again in a minute. That kind of obstructs your vision a little bit as far as where you're going in the river for those super shallow rivers. It also keeps your weight lower in the river so that you're less likely to flip if you're doing more whitewater worthy stuff than what I was doing on the Escalante. There's another brand called Cocopelli. That's this one down here. They kind of came into the pack rafting scene in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. Their boats are cheaper. I don't know. I haven't ever been in one, and I don't know the durability of those boats. I presume that they are, Cocopelli is a good brand in general, so I presume they're pretty good. They don't have nearly the following of the alpaca or the Air boat. The alpaca, the Air just came out with an upgraded back raft, like the one I have. So these boats range from branded boats, probably $700 to over $2,500. So they're not cheap. The higher end ones are for the more specific, like the narwhal, very whitewater specific with some specific additions. The one that's in the picture here, that's the alpaca. I think there's 30 different sizes, and that's the middle size. I forget the name of it, but you can see the big butt in the back. What happened with the original design, which was just like a ducky, is when you'd go over these drops, you just endo everywhere, and so they made this big butt kind of thing, so you don't endo anymore. So they design, they're still, I guess you would say, they're still refining the designs of the boats. They are great boats, and you can see the skirt on this one. That's the kind of the basic skirt on those. As far as non-pack raft specific gear, pretty much everything else. The paddles, this is a 5 breakdown paddle from Sawyer that's carbon fiber. It's super light. But even just whitewater kayakers would use this because they can store it in their boat. So it's not specific to back raft or pack rafting. But typically you just get the boating gear and the camping gear that you want, and you just get it as light as possible. So like ultralight stuff. So the super light paddle, basically there's a whole, on the APA site, they have some gear lists of the lightest, PFD that still meets regulations. Your helmet, if you want a helmet, the lightest helmet. They have a stripped down dry suit that looks to me like you'd go in shreds the first time you walk through a brush, but apparently it's pretty durable. But it's super light. It's like a pound. It's really lightweight. And then of course you have, when you go backpacking, plus the boating, so you have your tent, your food, your stove, your sleeping bag, all those things, so it's as light as possible. My pack, when I hiked down into the Escalante, was, I'm guessing, between 50 and 60 pounds. I didn't weigh it. I didn't really want to know, so I didn't weigh it. Let's see. And then the basic difference is the versatility of the boat. I can take this boat anywhere from the Escalante River, where I have to hike in, or even these remote rivers in Alaska, to the Grand Canyon. You could totally boat the Grand Canyon in it. Now, I probably wouldn't do that, but you could totally do it and just be prepared to swim. You can take it on the plane. You can put it, throw it in the back of the car. This is my boat behind you. Can you guys see my boat here? So you can see it's got the self-bending floor. It's got inflated floor backrest. It's got places to tie your gear across the front. On the bottom, it has little hand loops. It's super light. It's like 6 pounds. And it's not much bigger than I am. But it's just so versatile. They're such versatile boats. They're great. Next time I go to Hawaii, I'm taking it with me, take it on the beach. And then everything else is the same. Food, water needs, shelter needs are the same. The clothing is similar, just as light as possible. Don't forget your rain hat like I did on the Escalante. You have to basically improvise. But there's just some tips. And this is, honestly, I'm not telling you guys anything new. This is pretty basic. You practice with your boat loaded the way you want to go. Pack everything before you go. You can weigh it there and you can say, oh, I don't want to carry an 80-pound pack. Maybe I should take some stuff out. And pick some really good boat trip mates. My second trip, it was 4 women. I think you saw a picture. Catherine Mutz was on that trip. Some of you know Catherine. And then 2 women from Alaska. And the 2 women from Alaska were definitely more backpacker oriented and less boating. They were new novice boaters, but they were cool as a cucumber whenever we had a flash flood and crazy rain and crazy weather, and they were great. I mean, it made the difference between a trip that could have gone really, really bad into a trip that was just durable and hard and a lot of work, but it's still a lot of fun. And then start easy. Make sure you're comfortable with the river's difficulty level wherever you go. The Escalante River is considered a class 3, but if you do some research, you'll see that the class 3 rapids are at low water are impassable anyway because they turn into sieves. So you have to walk around it, and they're very obvious. It's not hard to figure that out. And but then, like, if you want to do the river up in the Bob Marshall River Wilderness, then you might need to be prepared to deal with a lot of strainers because they have had wildfires up there and a lot of trees down over the river. So just know what you're doing. And then I just wanted to go through, that's pretty much all about the boats themselves. But just some classic pack rafting trips. The eel is, a lot of these you can do at least partly with a kayak, and then they have some put-ins, but some of them, the upper stretches are very difficult to get to, so it's easy to hike in. Like the Sanctuary River in Denali State Park is supposed to be phenomenal. There are probably hundreds of rivers in Alaska that would qualify for a really fun backpack or pack rafting trips. And like I said, Alaska's where pack rafting really kind of started taking off, is in the 80s with Roman Dial and those guys. The Owyhee River, when we're done here, I'm going to show you some, I know you can also canoe or kayak that, or even boat it at some levels, but the upper stretches are harder to get to. You have to hike in, and it's phenomenal. It's just so pretty, and it's just so much easier to get to with the pack raft. The Gunny Gorge, we have to hike in. People hike in their hard-shell kayaks all the time, but just do it with a pack raft, and it's a whole lot easier. The Klamath River in California, the Gila River in New Mexico, I have a video I'm going to show you of that. The Selway River off-season after July 31st. A lot of people do can go after that. But one of the best things about the pack rafts themselves, they can go in basically water conditions that almost no other boat can go on, even hard-shelled kayaks. They can go in really, really, really low water levels. So when people can't boat the Selway River anymore, they can't raft it or kayak it, you can still pack raft it, because the spots that you can't do in the boat, you just walk around and you just pick up your boat and it's no biggie. The Salt River, you can do the upper stretches. In the South Fork of the Flathead, that is like the last two here, the South Fork of the Flathead and the Escalante are they're world-class pack rafting rivers. I've done the Escalante twice, and the next one I really want to do is the South Fork of the Flathead. That's in the Bob Marshall Wilderness south of Glacier. There's also the Middle Fork Flathead River. The South Fork Flathead River is considered to be a class 3. The river itself is probably class 2. There is one class 3 section that you can walk around at the very bottom. But again, it's so your remoteness factor and the factor that you have a lot of fires and a lot of downed trees probably ups your risk to a class 3. The Middle Fork Flathead, you add a class to both of those. It's a solid class 3 river, and then considering the remoteness and your potential for strainers, it would definitely be a class 4, if not maybe a class 5 as far as risk taking. So I'll start with the South Fork, see how that goes, and then maybe try maybe someday do the Middle Fork. I don't know, it's on my list. So before we go to YouTube, I'm going to show you my little video from my trip in 2016. It was Catherine, myself, and 2 ladies named Natalie and Casey. And this is a little video I put together a couple years ago. There's no music or anything, but that's Casey on the left, then me, then Catherine, and then Natalie. And there's Catherine. And I have to tell you, if you pick a trip mate to go on, Catherine was kind of my buddy. We shared a tent. She makes the best food. Oh my gosh. She hiked in raw eggs. It was great. She made pasta carbonara. It was delicious. Neon Canyon, if you got to go to Neon Canyon. It is amazing place. We were there on Easter Sunday. And then you can hike upriver a little bit and go to these pictographs that are just upstream, maybe a half mile from the Neon Canyon confluence. Really, really beautiful panel. And there's my boat. You can see my backpack strapped across the front. And those are the pack rafts. You can see the big butt on that just to keep you from endoing everywhere. This is Rincon Canyon. Phenomenal slot canyon. And it started raining here and it pretty much didn't stop raining for the rest of the trip, except for the one day we ended up laying over. But it's just an amazing slot canyon. You go in, you can go back in quite a ways. There's some quicksand spots you want to be careful of. We walked on one of them. But it's in some parts that were pretty tight squeeze, but it's just every canyon, it's kind of like the Grand Canyon, you know, the side canyons have such unique personalities. It's some pretty easy paddling. You can see the color of the water is pretty clear. You'll see it later after it flashes. It's not clear anymore. 25-mile wash is a great side hike to hike up. One of the few sunny moments of the trip. And the scenery is it's just stunning. And this is where Catherine made her delicious meal. She hiked in fresh sugar snap peas and pasta carbonara. It was delicious. She did. I'll take her anywhere. And then we kept going downriver, all packed up. And she rented her boat. So the other 3 ladies rented their boats. You can rent them. And it's really handy because you can just rent them and they'll ship them to you. And then when you're done, you ship them right back. It's great. So really easy water. The water there is probably 4 inches thick or deep. I mean, and then there's a couple of little side springs that you can drink from. That's perfectly fine. I totally understand if you're not up for that, but, and then a lot of riffles where you had to basically push yourself over, and then you get down a little bit lower and some fun little drops. And this is when it started really raining. And so I ran the boats for the ladies, the 2 ladies who were novice boaters, mostly because if they flipped, I didn't want them to get in their gear wet because it was so cold and rainy. It just rained and poured and hailed. And then it just kind of was a bit demoralizing. You'll have my picture here of me under my boat where I was just like, yeah, I was miserable and just like, you can't stop smiling if you're the trip leader. You got to keep going. So we kept going. So we started at a couple portages, and those boats are so easy to portage. You can basically throw them over practically. A lot of poison ivy. Be careful if you go down there. And then there's Catherine and her boat. It's just so much. It's so pretty. And the alpaca boats they're very vibrant colors. They're very pretty boats. And then let's see, another drop there, and that's Natalie. She used to live in Boulder. And then we got some rain and we got the waterfalls. It was pretty. And then one night in the middle of the night, it flash flooded and it just roared like a freight train. And since we had novice boaters, we decided to lay over. And of course it was the sunny day of the trip, the day we laid over. Some other groups kept going, but we decided not to. So I took my book and I tore it into 4 pieces, and I read one part and handed it to the next person, and I read the second part and handed it down so we'd all had something to read. And then so we laid over that day, hung out, and then we went downstream. And since the water had changed, it was so much muddier. The new boaters were having trouble seeing where to go. So for some of the drops, I ran them. And getting water after that was a struggle. Actually, it took a lot of settling, a lot of time. We were dealing with water because of the mud factor was so much different. But you got to have your chocolate pudding. So let's see. So we actually ate our chocolate pudding warm because we were so cold. And then the next day we left, had another flash flood that rose about 4 inches, and we didn't realize it, but one of our paddles was sitting on the ground and almost floated away. So that was a little scary. It kind of woke us up a little bit. We suited up, and you can see me in the distance here. I'm on that big rock. I scouted everything because the water changed. The character of the river changed a lot, and so the new boaters were not comfortable with some of the drops, so I'd run their boats as well as my boats, which was fun. I like doing that, so that was good. And Catherine, she ran everything. She's a beast, great boater. And that's Natalie going through. You can see some of these tight, turn into be sieves at low water or high water. Another portage, and then some great side hikes. But we were at this point, we were trying to make up time because we had lost a day when we had that forced layover. And we had this, I don't know, we didn't know what kind of animal it was, but it had obviously used this trail a lot over the years. And as you go lower, the canyon, the Wingate sandstone, it just gets prettier and prettier. And then of course it rains again. Stevens Arch is when you know you're close to the takeout. And Coyote Gulch, you hike up a little bit up Coyote Gulch, and then you hike up basically to the rim. But again, it rained again while we were eating, but we must keep going because we're supposed to be out that night. Quicksand is everywhere. So we towed our boats up as much as we could up Coyote Gulch, and then we started hiking out. And the first 100 feet is tricky, and you rope up your gear, and there's an exposed section you want to have a rope for people to hang on to when they get out. It took us probably 2 hours to get up that first 100 feet. It's crazy. And then you stop and have a snack, and then the next 700 feet is up a sand dune, which is 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but at least you had really nice scenery there. That's Stevens Arch again from the other side. So you go up this sand dune effectively, and you can see it there, and it is a slog. I won't lie, it's a slog to get out. And then when you get to the top of the sand dune, you have crack in the wall, and you have to haul your gear up because you can't fit yourself and your gear through the crack. So you haul up your crack, and you can see where all the ropes pulled slots in the rock when the people pulled up their gear. And then you walk up, you shimmy up this crack up to the surface. By the time we were done, it was dark, so we did not get out that night. We were kind of worried about them reporting us missing. Turns out that two of our husbands called us in as missing. So the next morning, we obviously couldn't see where we were putting our tent. We were sleeping on a bush. But the next morning, we got up and tried to go pretty quickly and get out, but we had some good pictures. That's the 4 of us. After our ordeal with the rain, it finally started to clear up that day when we were hiking out. It was nice. So we all packed up and slogged out. It was actually, this is the easiest part of the hike. It's all those petrified sand dunes, so it's hardly any elevation. You can see the white spots in the distance. Those are the trucks. So hiking out, and then we were trying to really rush. In the last 50 feet up, I could see the sheriff deputy checking out my car at the takeout, and I like ran up the hike, and I finally, he was driving away, and I flagged him down, and I'm like, no, we're here, we're fine, we're okay. And he was kind of funny. He was a little bit like, why didn't you come out yesterday? And we're like, well, we had a flash flood, so we sat it out. You know, we were being responsible. And it turns out they had a death that week, so they were very jittery, but we were fine. And he radioed it in that we were okay, and they called our respective spouses and let them know. So, because we don't have cell phone coverage for the other 2 hours after this, but the sheriff has radio coverage. So that was our trip. It was very rigorous. The weather did not cooperate, but oh my gosh, I couldn't have picked a better crew to go with. It was great, and it was still a blast, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. So now I'm going to go to those 2 YouTubes and kind of show you a little bit about, this was, oops, go away. Here we go. This is the Owyhee River. And I started it kind of in the middle because it has a lot of stuff about hiking in, and I didn't want to go through that. So this is the Owyhee River.
You see, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain.
And you can see those are the old style boats, but they didn't have the big butt, and you can see how far back they lean. So if you're looking for a used one, make sure you don't get one of those with the little butt. Get the one with the big butt. Those are the Alpaca brand. So it is a really, really beautiful river. I'll stop that one for the moment. And we'll go to the Gila River. Now this is one I wanted to do for years with my canoe. It takes a specific timing. Canoe, you need probably at least 200 CPS. For the pack raft, 50 is probably plenty. But this is another one that is just a stunning river. This is in central western New Mexico in the Gila Wilderness, and it's just a beautiful river. One of these days I'm going to do this river, but you have to be kind of packed and ready to go and watch the water levels and just go when it's high enough to go. So since I have to have a job, I can't always do that as well as I'd like. He's that flexible. So, but it is just, I mean, look at that. That's all the Bandelier Tuff. So that's all from a volcanic eruption in central New Mexico, if you're interested in geology. So, get this thing to stop. There we go. So that's the presentation on pack rafts. Like I said, another one to, if you ever want to Google one, a good one to look at would be the South Fork of the Flathead River. Classic, I mean, water that you can see 10 feet down. It's like the Middle Fork on steroids, apparently. I've never done it and I want to do it someday, but it's fantastic fishing and a great class 3 run at the bottom. The bottom 3 miles is, I forget the name of the gorge, but it's a little gorge. So if you're committed once you go in, but it's class 3, and people have written that it's a pretty standard class 3, nothing particularly dangerous in there, but you got to be committed if you go. But it's supposed to be fantastic. It's one of those I want to do. So that's all I have. I'll stop sharing my screen now and we can just go back to questions.
Hey, Lynn, I have a question.
Sure.
It's Mickey. I notice in some of the videos, people use dry bags and some they used one big backpack.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I know you want to carry it on your back, but you think some combo of dry bags in your backpack, or, you know, how would you do that?
That's what I did. I didn't have a Bill's bag at the time. I think a Bill's bag would be a kind of a nice compromise on that. Something you definitely want a waist belt because you're going to be carrying probably at least 40 pounds at least. So if not 50. But what I did on mine is I just I used dry bags in my backpack that just got wet, and I double bagged like my sleeping bag and my you saw my down jacket in there just so I have something warm and a pair of fleece clothes. I double bagged all that stuff. But things like my stove and stuff, I mean, I put them in a bag, but I didn't care so much if they got wet. But yeah, the thing about that though is when you hike out, your backpack's all wet, so it adds weight. But it also, if it's cold at all, you know, you probably need to wear some kind of a rain jacket or something to keep your back from getting all wet. I didn't think about that when I did it, so.
Hey, Lynn, this is Sam.
Hey, Sam.
How many chambers do those pack rafts have?
Mine has one for the tubes and one for the floor. So they don't meet the 3 chambers criteria for some duckies on some rivers, but yeah, it only has 2. And I believe the alpaca also has only 1 for the tubes and 1 for the floor. And I think the Cocopelli is the same, but I've never seen a Cocopelli, so I don't know about that.
Did you guys have any problems with any punctures or anything in your trip?
I've done 2 trips, and one guy had 1 puncture, and we basically take that Tyvek tape for the alpaca boats, and that works great. And you can actually use that same Tyvek tape for the internal urethane bladder for my air back raft as well. It was great. I mean, we stuck it on there as a temporary patch, thinking that we could fix it that night at camp, and we never needed to fix it at camp. We just left it on for the trip, and it was fine. And it was tiny. It was like a needle hole. After all that beating against those beaver cuts, I thought for sure we were going to be having tears left and right, but no, they're amazing. The one thing you do have to be really careful about is don't let them overheat. They don't take expansion very well. So you have to be really careful about taking them out of the river, and definitely want to tie them because they're so lightweight. A gust of wind will blow them away and you won't have a boat anymore. So 2 things you have to be really, really, really careful about is keeping them from overheating, and don't let them blow away.
If they're such thin material, do they offer much of a warranty by the manufacturer, or you kind of?
My air has a 10-year warranty. I'm actually going to send it in this winter and see what they'll do for mine, because the DCF fabric is kind of getting worn, and some of the stitching on the DCF fabric is kind of worn through. I'm really curious to see what they'll do for me. But and alpaca, I believe they have a 3-year warranty. I believe it's 3. But those boats, if I had to do it over again, I probably would buy an alpaca. But like I said, I really wanted that inflatable floor. I detested sitting on that in that water. I just hated that. So, but now, like I said, the alpacas now have the inflatable floor, and you can still bring a little inflatable, like even a pillow, to sit on it to give yourself a little more elevation if you want to, for the non-technical stuff. And that keeps you just out of the water enough that you're not just sitting in the water all day, which I didn't like at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Oh, there we go. That's better. You can see everybody.
Then before you were saying that the reason you didn't get the alpaca, I thought it was you said that it didn't have a self-bailing floor.
I mean, self-bailing. Yeah, self-bailing floor. It has a bucket. The ones that they used to have only self-bailing, I mean, only bucket floors. In about 2017, they started doing the self-bailing floor with the alpacas. So I bought mine in 2016. So they didn't have them yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but now they do.
Lynn, Debbie
Yeah.
here.
Oh, hey, Debbie.
So how much, you said they were really expensive. What is really expensive? What do
Well,
they cost?
this one I bought, it was a demo. I bought it for, I think, $1,300. And they normally go, this one would probably normally go for, I probably got like 100 or 200 off. So they're not cheap. So they're like about the same as a, a quality ducky, like a high side ducky or something. The cheaper ones, the Cocopelli, I've seen as cheap as 400, but I don't know if that's for the expedition like weight. I think that might be for just local use. They have different weights, I think, the Cocopelli. I haven't looked into Cocopelli at all. The alpacas, they go, and I think the cheapest you can get them on, and there's a sale every Christmas. They have like November through December, there's a sale, 10% off every year at alpacas. If you're thinking about buying one, wait till the sale. But I think the low end for alpaca is like 800, and they go up to 2,500 because like that narwhal I showed you, that whitewater one, it's got some very specific additions and reinforcements, I guess. I don't know much about it, but they are very expensive. So
I'll talk to you again because, it'd be interesting to know, like for a small person, what would be the best size.
Yeah, and it depends on, so they have basically small, medium, large, the Denali llama, and then forget the different sizes. They have great names, the alpaca does. I would buy, if I had to do it again, I'd buy an alpaca personally. I love this thing, but I think the alpaca would be better suited for what I want to do. But also if you're buying sizing, just also think about your gear weight too. So let's say you have 25 to 35 pounds of camping gear, add that to your weight to get a good idea of what's an appropriate boat size for you. Now the hunters, the alpaca makes some that are like super big, like 8 or 10 feet, because the hunters up in Alaska will use them when they go moose hunting, and then they'll do like some basic field stripping in the field, and then they'll carry their moose out on these things. They're totally overweight for the boat, but they're just doing it on, very flat rivers. They don't care, but that's what they can go further places than they can with their John boats. So they take their John boat up, get out and hike up another 5 miles to find their moose. And then they hike it down, or they boat it down to the John boat, and they go back to their place. So it's pretty cool.
Hey, Lynn. So I do a lot of backpacking, and I'm usually at about 20 to 23-ish pounds. How much additional weight then would having all of that add to that? And then also, are you using regular straps? Because I know those can get kind of...
No, alpaca sells a little thin cord for their boat specifically. I used parachute cord for mine. So my boat's like 7.5 pounds, plus my PFD is probably another 2 pounds, plus my paddle is probably 2.5 pounds. I don't have a super lightweight paddle. Plus your helmet, if you're going to do anything, helmet worthy. And then I also, because you're going to get wet during the day, I have a boating specific set of clothes that's also additional than what I would wear for the backpacking stuff. And you could probably combine those two, but that would take a little bit of planning, and I boat more than I backpack, so I just went with 2 separate sets. So But yeah, so it's probably at least another 10, probably in the order of 15 pounds more for the gear.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, you guys are welcome to try this guy out anytime. Just we can go up to Deckers or downtown Denver. I don't care. It's fun. It's a fun, this boat, I mean, it handles very much like my high side ducky, although it's more wind sensitive and it wants to turn more than it wants to go forward. It's like a ducky, but even worse. So if you're not experienced in a ducky, you might want to try a ducky first, because you know how it is just hard to go forward sometimes. You just, instead of going forward, you just spin in spots. This boat does that a lot. So you have to be careful. And that was one of the things that the novice boaters on my trip kind of had a little bit of trouble learning at first, but then they picked it up pretty quick. Debbie Hind had done her, which boat did you take with you when you did your trip on the Escalante, Debbie? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I fixed it.
There you go.
Thanks. I borrowed one of Randy Knopf's original alpacas. So it was a bucket boat and it didn't have that back end support. But my pack was so heavy in the front, I didn't have any issues with endos. But I don't remember, I think it weighed about 5.5 pounds. It was a fun little boat. It was incredible. The one thing I noticed, I'm a canoer. So what I noticed is going over a drop, there was 2 times where the backwash of the drop, where I would normally punch it, no problem in a canoe, it pulled me back.
Oh, right.
Being in a non-self-bailing backraft, it just filled up right away. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, I got tired of the non-self-bailing boat personally. I just, no thank you. Yeah. But yeah, in your story, Debbie, you had, so on my first trip, we lost a paddle, which you wouldn't think you could do. You saw the pictures of that river, right? You wouldn't think you could lose your paddle there, but there's a place where there's a sieve, and of course it just happened to drop the paddle right above the sieve, and then you can't go for it because it's a sieve. And so we end up splitting one of the other kayak paddles into 2 and then canoe paddling the rest of the way because we didn't have a spare. So that's one thing you want to consider is, do you want to bring a spare paddle? And I know you said you had some issues on your trip too, right, Debbie?
Yeah, we had one issue where it was pretty amazing. We were coming up to that first, it's a mandatory scout possible portage. I don't remember the name of it.
Probably Scorpion.
Could be, whatever the first one is of the 2. And we were told you eddy out river left, and we were coming down, Randy and I, and there was this lady on river right yelling, just stay far right, stay far right. And so we come around this tight corner, we see our other 2 guys on river left, and one of them is sitting there doing nothing. The other one's holding his paddle out to the right. So we said, oh, well, we'll go right. So instead of scouting, we ended up running the thing without even knowing it, which was really wrong. That lady shouldn't have been doing that. But Randy went over a drop and flipped, and I went after his boat and realized it was too tight and scary. I had to let his boat go. So we pulled over and reworked boats. We had 2 guys in duckies with us, which they were more comfortable on the water, but miserable for the hiking and the portaging. But we found Randy's boat a mile downriver on a rock, right side up, with nothing but a tiny, tiny little scrape on the side of his backpack that let some of his gear get damp. It was amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was the Escalante.
Escalante will surprise you, definitely. Yeah, it's worth going at least once. It's worth going, and I'll do it again. I'll do it again, but it's rigorous. Just know that it is rigorous.
Yeah,
especially that beast of a hike out. It's a pain in the ass.
It's a class 10 hike out. On a scale.
I want to go when it's sunny, Lynn.
Yeah. You know, and we knew it was supposed to rain. We just didn't know it was supposed to rain that much. Oh my God. And I was so miserable. That picture of me under my boat, I was sitting there going, I hate this. I hate this. This sucks so bad. I hate this. We're doing great. You know, what are you going to say? Right. So, yeah, I was hating life And I didn't have a rain hat, so my head kept getting all wet. So I found that Ziploc and put it over my head to keep my head dry. Oh yeah, it was funny. Yeah, the things you learn.
Hey, Lynn, so some of that stuff that you've done, it seems a little remote. Like I've been out to Neon Canyon and
Oh yeah.
rappelling and all that. And is there like, does River Maps make maps or for the Escalante River, or what maps did you use?
I made some in ArcGIS. I made a set, and you're welcome. I can put them up on the website. It's I made them, and I have them coordinated with my GPS. I have waypoints on my GPS too. So if you take the maps I make, they're topographic. They have the river and they have waypoints. So they have like mile waypoints. They have some campsites. They have the Scorpion Rapid actually is wrong on there. It's actually downstream a little further, but at least it gives you a heads up. And it has waypoints where I've read that you can hike out of the canyon. So a lot of places you saw, there are sheer cliffs. You cannot get out, but there are some of the tributaries that you can hike out. Just be forewarned before you make a decision to hike out for help or whatever, that they are choked with poison ivy. So you will pay eventually, or somebody's gonna have to owe you a bunch of beer for getting out and getting them help, because I look at that stuff and I get poison ivy. But yeah, and the poison ivy is like 4 freaking feet tall, and you can't avoid it. But there are supposedly ways out. So I have all that. If anybody wants to go, I have it. So let me know.
Yeah,
Did you use it, Debbie? Did you use my map stuff?
I use Backcountry Navigator. I know there's also Gaia out there. Those are 2 different apps. I do the same thing. I just kind of either go on like CalTopo, or it's kind of like a ArcGIS type of software, and put it all together, put the points down, and then upload that map to my phone. And that's how I usually do it. But
Yeah, I have GPS, my GPX, the Garmin ones, so they probably can be converted to use for a lot of different ones. And I also put water sources on there too. As you saw, filtering that water is a beast, especially after it flashed. So Catherine had luckily brought some of that settling alum stuff, because I didn't think to bring any, and we had enough for up until like the last day. So then we had to really let things set. We had to, every night we'd have all of our pots out and settling water for the next day. And then when we got on top, the potholes were the best water in the entire trip. It was crazy. I mean, you would think that pothole water would be skanky and bad, but that was the best water we had the whole entire trip. It was great. Tadpoles and all.
and can you 303 Packcraft?
You know, I don't know. I think the urethane bladder on the air, I think that's 303. Alpaca, you have to talk to the manufacturer. I think you can. I don't think it would hurt it, but I would just ask them, but I expect so. That stuff's amazing. I use it on my car. It's great. Yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else I missed. I don't think so.
Can you talk a little bit?
Lynn has a fantastic spreadsheet with hikes and water sources, and there's Pepper.
Pepper says hello. Hello.
Pepper,
Useless dog.
Pepper, come over.
Yeah, Pepper, come over. That's right.
Hamburger.
Like hamburger, don't you?
I have to go in. Thank you. It was really, really
Hi,
interesting.
Summer.
See ya. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Lynn. That was great.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Thanks for putting it together.
I
And
can give you guys, so Nick, I'll send you the map and the GPS points so that you can use those. They're good. They're like, you can print them on waterproof paper, letter size. And there's, I think, 8 or 9 pages. So it's like the river maps. I did it the same way. So bottom to top, the same way, oriented up, upriver. So the north area is always pointing some other wonky way, not always north up. Don't think north is up on these maps, because they're not. Yeah.
I just bought Gaia about a month ago.
Oh, nice.
For our backpack in Idaho, and because I was thinking of getting a GPS. My husband Bob always has his GPS, but I'm not always with him, and so I've been messing around with Gaia. It's been fun, real interesting. then you get in the whole situation with your phone of having to have a charger and backup charger, solar charger. So I'm still not sure ultimately kind of what way I'll go, but guys, been fun. It's been good.
Yeah.
And
I'm actually considering buying one of those, the InReach, the one that combines the InReach with the GPS thing. It's not the InReach, it's the one above that, because I really like the GPS part. But the InReach would be nice to have, to talk to people, you know, if you need help. Save you from having to hike out that poison ivy. That'd be worth it right there. Yeah.
And I just wanted to say it was wonderful going down memory lane. So
Oh yeah.
thank you so much. It was a delightful trip, and if anyone's wondering, I would do it again in a heartbeat. So it's definitely worth going, not just for the first time.
Yeah, and like I said, Catherine makes a damn good carbonara.
So next time I'm going to pack less food, or pack lighter food, though.
Pack lighter in general, yes.
Yes.
I think mine was like 55. It was insane. Yeah, good time. But going downhill is the good part. Oh, the other thing about the Escalante is I think you now have to pack out your poop, and we didn't have to do that when we were there, Catherine. So now they changed the regs. So you can't count that weight gone. You have to carry it back out. So yeah.
What did you guys do? Did you use wag bags, or what? Did you bury it?
We buried ours.
You buried it.
I don't know what you do. What'd you do, Debbie?
Yeah, we had to carry ours out. We used wag bags and secondary bags because it still wasn't fun.
Stinky.
Yeah, but my pack with all the boating gear, my dry suit, which I am so grateful I brought because we had big rainstorms and I was in a bucket boat. I think my load was between 55 and 60 pounds. It was miserable. So I divided it in half for the hike out. And the guys with us that brought duckies had to do 3 trips up and down that dune and the crack and yeah.
Wow.
Miserable. Does not sound good. I've heard of people getting to the bay, like to Coyote Gulch, and that night they'll hike out one set and they'll come back, they'll camp that night, and then they'll hike out the rest of their stuff. I've heard of people doing that. So you split up over a day. So you're not totally killing yourself. But I cannot imagine hauling a ducky down there. That just seems insane to me, honestly. But it'd be good on the river. And you can have, I mean, like, well, 2 things. One is the Escalante, the window for going down the Escalante is very limited. It's usually April. Pretty much April. They start diverting the water early May. So if you're lucky, there may be enough water when they divert it, after they divert it. But usually you can't count on anything after about the first week of May. So you're in April, so you're in kind of stormy weather, winter, spring, winter weather. And then the other thing is you can go up and launch at Highway 12. It adds about 40 miles to the overall trip. So you could take a, canoe even, or a ducky, and carry out more gear. But you have to either hike it out at the end, or you can go all the way down to the lake and have somebody pick you up, come out from one like Bullfrog Marina or something. But the water level on the lake has dropped so much that you're in those silt channels, where the silt, it's unconsolidated basically from the bottom of the lake, and it sloughs all the time. And that, to me, it's like you're going through this channel that's maybe 8 to 10 feet wide. And if one of those things sloughed right when you're going by it, that just seems terrifying to me. So I hiked out. I don't think I'll ever do that unless the water level in the lake is high enough to be above those silt flats, because that just seems scarier and scary. For the middle fork of the south fork of the Flathead, the summer, it's like early July is the time to go. So if you want to do one of these backrafting trips, every trip is different. You have to kind of figure out what the season is. Like the Gila River is typically spring. The Escalante is typically April. But the South Fork of the Flathead is typically summer. So everyone's different. Alaska, you can pretty much go May through October. Just in October, I'd be very bear aware up there. So.
Lynn, question: the Flathead, is that grizzly country?
I think it is. Yeah, because you're in the Bob Marshall Wilderness. I think so.
Live cruises?
Because they have them in Glacier, and that's just south of Glacier. I wouldn't be surprised either way. Don't they have glaciers in Yellowstone? So yeah, I would say definitely so. I know they have had grizzlies in Yellowstone. So if that's the case, then I would say Bob Marshall's north and west of there. So probably.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Lynn. This was awesome.
Bravo.
Just let me know. Seriously, just let me know if you want to try her out.
Oh.
I'm going to Deckers this weekend, so, and I'm not using this boat. So if you want to come, come on, Debbie, come on, let's go. 10 o'clock. I'll send you I'll text you.
Okay.
You want to try this boat?
Yes.
Okay, you got it. Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thanks a lot.
Lynn.
Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
Oh, hey.
Bye.
Good night.
All right,
Thank
take care.
you.
Bye, doll.
Bye.
Bye, Pepper.
Thanks, Lynn. This is
Bye.
On.
Oh, there we go.